welcome everybody to Sparks Africa. This is our first Facebook Live, and in Sparks Africa, we wanted to celebrate African excellence to inspire a new generation of achievers. And one of the key aims in that celebration process is actually to shed light on the sparks of Africa. So those individuals who are the trailblazers, the bright lights, the people who are doing great things in the community, in industry, in sports, in all walks of life, that the young people or anybody can learn from in order to develop themselves. And what we want to do eventually is to help to draw attention to people of African descent, regardless of where they are born or where they live today, to build that global connection, that global network of people of African descent, and to shed light on our brightest and best for our young people, for the next generation to learn from. So today I'm particularly delighted to welcome somebody I call a young lady. I first met her whilst I was in government as a special advisor to the Prime Minister. I hosted a conversation with people within the Black business sector, organizations that are supporting young Black people to start their own businesses. This young lady, Izzy Obeng, is the founder of an organization called Founder Vine. It's a social enterprise established to support women and young people from other underrepresented backgrounds to start their own businesses from scratch and to build those businesses, to access funding, and so on and so forth. When I hosted the conversation in Downing Street, she was the one who led the delegation, and I was very impressed by her contribution. Since then, she's also been recognized very recently by Forbes as one of 25 Black British business people to follow. So she definitely is one of the sparks of Africa, one of the young sparks that I believe her contribution and the organization that she runs will make a big impact in the community. And she's somebody that we should certainly learn from. So Izzy, welcome to Sparks Africa.
Thank you for having me.
Great. I think the first thing is really just from your own perspective to introduce yourself to the members who are watching.
Brilliant, of course. So hi everyone that's watching. I'm Izzy Obeng. As Nero mentions, I am the Managing Director of Founder Vine. And Founder Vine is a social enterprise that is on a mission to diversify access to entrepreneurship. We are committed to building a more inclusive digital economy where whether you are a woman or you're someone from an underrepresented background, that shouldn't be a barrier towards starting a business. We are quite active in the UK. I'm based in Ghana at the moment, where we've been looking into how we can be supporting the entrepreneurship and digital ecosystem across sub-Saharan Africa. But the work that we do in the UK is where we're most active. And over the last 3 years, we have run a series of digital startup acceleration programs, all helping diverse founders start businesses and scale their businesses further. So our founders have gone on to raise funding. We've had about 66 businesses started under us, and we have run a series of investment readiness programs for Black founders, for diverse founders, for female founders across the UK. So really happy to be here and contribute to this conversation. So thank you for the invitation, Nero.
Thank you very much. That's excellent. I think just to dive into the conversation, so we titled this Entrepreneurship in a Time of Disruption. And clearly the COVID-19 global pandemic has really disrupted quite a lot of things across the world. But what I want to do is start at the beginning of what were the challenges that you saw in terms of the ability of people from underrepresented groups to start their own businesses that drove you to establish this organization?
Yes, absolutely. So I always talk about my own personal background when I'm asked this question. And so to give a bit of context on me, so I grew up in a part of North London called Tottenham, a place where, even up until recently, there was a high degree of people who live in poverty, who often feel disconnected from the wider economy. And I grew up around lots of young people who had a lot of entrepreneurial energy, a lot of young Black men and women who had a lot of energy and a lot of drive to make a change, and who just did not have access to entrepreneurship, to digital skills education, to the tools that they would need to compete in an economy that was changing a lot. And so I thought at the time that I was going to end up going into politics, and I was really passionate about sort of the political sphere and how we could actually increase opportunity for young people. And I ended up studying that at university as well. And it was during my time at university that I realized the power of business to affect change in our communities, the power of financial inclusion, of generational wealth, and the need to build more capacity in our young people so they could start businesses or become more entrepreneurial in the organizations they work in, and therefore go into positions of leadership and grow. So at the time, I was working in management consulting at KPMG in London, and I quit to start a project that was fundamentally committed to forwarding our community and helping build more entrepreneurs who could really lead the future of our economy. And since then, a whole bunch of things have happened, and one of those things is coming to Ghana, where I am now, to see where I can make a difference here.
Fantastic, thank you for that. So I'm wondering, because one of the things we discussed when you joined that delegation with me was about access to finance, which was, in a sense, if you talk to people, they present that as one of the biggest challenges in terms of young people in particular, or people from underrepresented groups, people from Black and minority background, starting their own businesses, the access to finance. And looking at the disruption right now, the potential that venture capital is going to probably retract to some extent. Do you see that as a major challenge moving forward, or is this a time of opportunity?
So it's a complex question, and I think a lot of the conversation at this time has rightfully been focused on access to funding and access to finance of various kinds for organizations. But in some ways, the conversation, it can be too simplistic. You know, funding is very important, and access to finance when you're starting out in particular, and you need that small amount of startup capital just to get the venture going, is so important. But what we find in our work is that often, you know, if you have built a product, you've got a team, you've had this great idea, and you're looking for additional support to grow, whether that is funding or whether that is access to acceleration programs, you know, well done for getting there. But there are a whole bunch of people before then who just lack the support, the knowledge, the advice, the networks to be able to even get their idea off the ground. We end up in this situation where everyone's talking about funding for Black founders, funding for diverse founders, but we are talking less about the fact that we have an educational system that does not actually support young people in learning enterprise and digital skills. I don't know about you, but when I was in school, that was not something I was taught. And then we have a kind of economy that has these graduates and these school leavers come into it, and they are not provided with the skills that they need to go on and start businesses. So many people in our community don't even get to that point. So access to funding, very important. And it's been really interesting to see some of the interventions that government have put in place, whether that is the Bounce Back Loan Scheme or the Coronavirus Support Fund, or the initiatives that private organizations are doing in order to help organizations make it through this crisis. But we are seeing a little bit less conversation in terms of the interventions that need to be put in place to help Black entrepreneurs build capacity internally, whether that is leadership development, whether that is customer acquisition, all the things they need to actually build sustainable businesses so that the funding can get them where they need to get to. And I'd like to see a bit more conversation about that.
So there are two ways to look at that, because I think that's a very important point that you're making in terms of the support that exists for people who want to start their own businesses, either at that very early stage or even the kind of availability of conversations, training, support at a very young age, so that people really begin to build those sort of entrepreneurial skills. On the one hand, you can say that's a responsibility for government, for the schools, and so on. But we know that responsibility is not there, and it's been a long conversation to try and get government to recognize that. So how do we as a community respond to such a challenge?
Yeah, so there are sort of several different ways that we can look at it, and you know, I try as much as possible to take that ecosystems approach. So as a community, our influence and our ability to impact our young people starts from the very beginning. So in terms of how we engage with schools, in terms of how we engage with civil society institutions, in terms of how we engage with financial institutions, all of those things affect our ability to help entrepreneurs build businesses. And what is fantastic to see in my line of work are the number of Black professionals that give their time and who are really keen to give their time and their support to helping entrepreneurs grow. So we have a community of hundreds of professionals, you know, very diverse backgrounds, many outside of the community, who commit to providing those networks, commit to providing that knowledge that entrepreneurs need to grow. We know that if you are looking for a venture capital investment, you are, I think it's 10 times more likely to be successful if you get a warm introduction to that investor. We have a community in which you're less likely to have the networks to be able to have a warm introduction to an investor. So how do we actually build those spaces in our community where we are actually providing access to investment, access to the companies that might actually allow you into their supply chain to deliver services, and provide access to you know, institutions like government who you can lean on in order to change policy to make it more attractive for diverse founders. So there's lots of things we can do that are within our gift as professionals who work in organizations, and you don't have to go too far out of your way to ask your organization to look into their supply chain. How diverse are their suppliers? Look into their recruitment processes. What are the barriers facing ethnic minority candidates from applying? Look into their corporate responsibility. Are they actually investing in digital skills and education or financial education for young people from our communities? There's lots of things we can do without stepping too far outside of our space. But if you're looking to do more, then there are opportunities to mentor diverse founders. There are opportunities to give your knowledge in various ways as speakers and judges. And you know, I can talk for ages about that kind of work, but you know, every single one of us is looking at what's happening now with, you know, recent global events. All of us are looking right now at COVID-19 and the impact it's going to have, particularly on 18 to 24-year-olds who are leaving school towards an economy that is so different. And we all have a role to play in making sure that we can provide the ecosystem, the support that these young people can come into and thrive. So yes, let's hope that we can have more of these conversations so we can figure out what to do.
Exactly. I really like the angle that you were approaching that from. And on the one hand, you have people from African descent who are not necessarily business people or entrepreneurs, but are in jobs where they're very highly skilled individuals, and they can still be mentors to potential entrepreneurs and potential business people. So there are skills and opportunities and mentoring opportunities and networking opportunities that those individuals can provide. And I think that's one of the objectives of Sparks Africa, of wanting to build that connection, not just within the UK, but within African diaspora, wherever they are in the world, connecting those individuals across the world amongst ourselves. If we develop ourselves in Europe, we will be better placed to support Africa. So I'm also looking at the flow of support and engagement towards Africa. But I think the key question here is, Black Lives Matter and George Floyd has brought to the surface a lot of activism around the whole issue of discrimination. But we also know that collaboration within our communities, working together, networking, is not often at the forefront of how we think about things. But is this an opportunity in terms of Black Lives Matter to build that more collaborative spirit, to actually think about how we support each other as a community as a way of building up the community? So a different kind of activism, an activism that is beyond just going on the streets or going on the campaign, to saying, I can actually make a difference and I want to support somebody. Do you think that this is an opportunity, this time of disruption, great disruption, to build that connectedness within the community?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I think all of us have been asking ourselves, is this really the moment that Britain changes? Because we have seen a lot of things happen, whether that is in the US or global events, that have, as a society in the UK, forced us to reflect on race, forced us to reflect on what it means for Black people. Whether that was the 2011 riots, we had the Lammy Review, we've had Baroness McGregor's report, we've had all of these interventions, and it has felt like government hasn't been listening, industry hasn't been listening, and our community hasn't been able to effectively mobilize to respond to some of these challenges. However, there's something that feels a bit different about now. And I'm having many conversations with organizations and individuals who are genuinely interested in making a difference. I think it's a bit too soon to say what exactly is going to happen. We're still at that stage where emotions are high, people are having conversations, but businesses are listening. Government is listening, industry is listening and asking, what can we do to help the community grow? So it is within our gift as a community to design solutions where we come together and leverage each other's experience, skills, expertise in order to provide solutions that we can deliver either as a community ourselves or leverage the kind of the sense of change and the sense of shifting priority that a lot of organizations are doing at the moment. So collaboration, sometimes it can feel like it's a bit harder to do. Too often I think people can feel, how do I say this carefully? So I think people can feel as if there is kind of one cake and everyone needs to cut into it and take their piece. And the way I see things in our community at the moment is that we have a factory full of cake and everyone can have as much as they want if we work together. And that is jointly going in on bids for large-scale funding. That is working together to support young people and make up for the lack of education within schools at the moment. There's lots of different ways that could be having in the creative space, in the COVID-19 response, in the business space, whatever it is. But it takes us having conversations just like this, coming round digital roundtables and saying, what can I do? What small, great contribution can I make? And how can we work on this together and leverage industry to make sure that we see the kind of change that we're really campaigning for at the moment?
You mentioned something there about sometimes the way we see that, there's one cake and we are all fighting for it, which forces people in a sense to retreat into their own little corners and try to protect their patch. But as you say, there are extraordinary opportunities even here in the UK. And I see, for example, an area that I know you focus on as an organization, the whole tech sector. Do you want to just give us a little bit of introduction into the tech sector and what Black communities, Black individuals are doing within that sector that we should take note of?
Absolutely. So the UK tech sector is really thriving at the moment. It's worth about 184 billion, and it's growing 2 times as fast as any other sector in our economy. So it is the space in which people can go into, and there's something about tech that is different from other sectors. There's a democracy to it. Anyone with a laptop and half a day to learn about low-code tools or apps can have a go at working in tech. And the power that tech has to really democratize access to opportunity, to share and change things is huge. So there's a lot of room for innovation, and therefore there's a lot of money floating around for good ideas that can really scale. Traditionally, tech has, despite everything I've said, felt quite hard to navigate for communities of color wherever they are. Often the change is happening on their doorstep, and it still can feel disconnected because, you know, the gatekeepers tend to be from overwhelmingly different backgrounds. Access to funding can be notoriously difficult to navigate. And what we find is that despite this, there are some brilliant organizations who are genuinely making a real difference in our economy at the moment. In the venture capital space, in the angel investment space, there are networks like venture capital networks and angel networks like Good Soil VC, 10 by 10, Cornerstone Partners, who are actually raising some serious funds to invest solely in Black founders. The female founder space, we've got venture firms like Ada Ventures, who raised a £30 million just for female founders. So we're seeing money that's specifically tailored towards diversity. And on the flip side, we're seeing founders who are seeing opportunities to genuinely create tech organizations that focus on the needs of Black people, or tech organizations run by diverse founders or Black founders that serve the needs of the wider community. And we need both.
Great, fantastic. On that point, let's just bring it right down to the streets. And it's a question about, I'm a young person. Yes, I am. You don't have to smile. I'm a young person. I'm about to start my own business, and I want to do tech in London. So I live in Brixton. Where do I start? What is that thing that's going to get me into this sector to begin to understand what's happening within that sector?
Great question, because we're currently doing work in Brixton. So Foundervine was started to essentially be that first point when anyone has an idea and they don't know where to start. So we run a series of ideation programs, startup building programs designed to be accessed by absolutely anyone. And we are currently working with London Borough of Lambeth. We are working in Brixton to run programs designed to just help people start up. And if you are interested, I'm sure Nero will share the details, but please go on to our website because we have a program launching next Friday and one launching in August for Lambeth residents to learn how to build a startup in 54 hours. If you don't live in Lambeth and you are interested in other kinds of support, maybe you have an idea, you have a few customers, you're running a business and it's going along, but you haven't necessarily been able to find the capacity building support that you need to grow your business and take it to the next level. There are many accelerators out there in London, and because of the kind of pivoting towards digital programs caused by COVID-19, many programs that would typically have been very London-centric are now open to wider cohorts. So of course I have to say programs like Foundervines, we run sort of 6-12-week accelerator programs designed to help diverse founders grow, but there are many organizations out there, YSYS, One Tech, Capital Enterprise, BYP. There are organizations out there designed to help people within our community who have ideas or who want to get into technology to take their first steps by meeting the right people, by getting the knowledge that they need to grow these organizations, and by being able to kind of get the resources and the support and the access to co-founders and all those things that you need to make a business successful.
One of the members, I've asked a question about how can we access the support that you described. So I think we will share the links on the platform. But there's a question here as well about the stuff we talked about in terms of practical support for people who want to start their own business. The question is, to what practical steps can the Black community take to pool our resources and avail them to like exciting young entrepreneurs?
Yeah, it's a great question. And the question's interesting because I think that in the past, it may have felt difficult to know where your money was going or whether it was being channeled into the right places, which may have created a bit of apprehension towards kind of giving your money out. And what I'm finding now is that there are more and more organizations who are being, if you're interested in funding businesses, as an angel investor, kind of small scale angel investor, there are more organizations out there that are designed to let you do that. So I mentioned 10 by 10, which was founded by angel investor Andy Davis, and you can invest as an angel investor for £1,000, just £1,000. You can start there. And those are the kinds of platforms that allow any of us, anyone who's just got a bit of savings tucked away, to be able to invest in really interesting, exciting founders who are doing amazing things. Founders like Afrocentrics, who raised, I think, $500,000 recently for brilliant hair care brand. Founders like Trim It, who have raised a lot of money in order to run an incredible mobile barbering service. We're seeing more innovations like this. We got Rich Serenjogi, who's raised a bunch of money to run a kind of a clear score for small businesses. Those are the kinds of innovations we're seeing constantly. So you've got 10 by 10. You've got Cornerstone Partners, who are a group of 20 incredible Black men and women who came together to pool their savings and raise a fund. And I know that Cornerstone, I think I've got the number right, but they're raising like a 30 million fund at the moment to invest in Black founders. If you don't want to go there, you've got platforms like Panda, who are more social impact, but they have a community of villagers, they call them, and you can put in as little as £5 a month, and you can see on their website exactly where your money's going to the projects in the UK and Africa that are designed to support our communities grow. You've got platforms like BYP Network, who've recently raised $500,000 in crowdfunding, and they had 700 or so investors, but small amounts of funding into it, so they can raise funding for a company that's now valued at 8 million. So we're seeing these incredible companies, these incredible ways that we can all be part of the growth of ventures in our community. And I'm more than happy to share more information about any of the ones I've just mentioned and more after the call.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much. I will hold you to it. There's a question as well from a dentist who's asking about challenges he's facing in starting their own business. I'm not sure that's a particular question for you. Incidentally, in the next few weeks, we will be hosting a conversation with the Association of African Caribbean Dentists. So that will be an opportunity to engage. So I hope you will tune in for that, to engage directly with other dentists like yourself who have their own practice and who are doing great things. So that's another opportunity for us to shine a light on people. And I think the point you make, Izzy, there is very clear focus in terms of what we're trying to do in Sparks Africa, which is that all of this information, the wealth of information that you shared tonight, that we make that available for people, and people can take action. And if they need help and they need support, hopefully they'll be able to access mentoring. We will be providing opportunities within the platform for people to make mentoring requests and for other people to say, I'm here, I can support you. So that network opportunity will definitely be there. So I want to pivot away from the United Kingdom and talk more broadly about Africa. COVID-19, I think, has really shed a light on a number of key issues for Africa. One, the dependency on the West in a time of disruption where everybody's locked down and focused on tackling their own part of the challenge, means that the issues facing Africa are pretty much left to Africans to address. And I think it is right anyway that Africans should focus on addressing the challenges that face them. But so in one side, there are obvious problems to address, but it's also a time of great opportunity. You are in Ghana right now. Please tell us about some of the opportunities that you can see in Ghana and for the rest of Africa as well.
Yeah, so COVID-19 has had a huge impact in across sub-Saharan Africa. And one thing that I will say is that I think that governments and institutions all over the world predicted that there would be this massive societal collapse and everything would go wrong and cases would go out of control and no one would be able to manage it. Ghana has done an incredible job to contain the virus. We still have, and please don't hold me to account on the specific number, but less cases than Scotland for a country as large as ours. And the social distancing measures and the safety measures that have been put in place were put in way before some of the countries in the West. And so Ghana saw it coming. You know, I flew back on in early March, and I left at Heathrow where nobody cared about anything, and got back to a Ghana in which a guy in a hazmat suit attacked me with a thermometer as soon as I landed. It is a different world. So we should be really, really proud of that. In terms of what is going on here, the economy has slowed down. International exports have slowed down. International travel has ground to a halt. You know, a lot of services have had to, you know, either pivot their model or to close down completely. And now is a huge opportunity to really rethink what the future of countries like Ghana looks like from a digital perspective. More people being at home means that more children are being educated at home, and the opportunity to provide relevant learning opportunities to young people in their homes, in villages where they don't have access to, you know, as much technology is huge. And so I think that there's an opportunity now to revisit how we look at education, how we look at health, how we get health to people who need it most, and how we also look into business opportunities and how we look into other opportunities in science, etc. I think for a long time, organizations here have realized that they can't necessarily lean on government to make that change. And so private sector institutions now more than ever need to step up and use their reserves, use their corporate responsibility budgets to start acceleration programs, to start funding entrepreneurs to get the economy going again. And I'm seeing some of that start to happen here, but I think there is a long way to go.
Right. So on the technology end, because you've touched on a number of key areas, and I think everywhere in the world, those key areas are going to be a challenge. And the UK, as you said earlier, we celebrate UK as one of the most tech advanced countries in the world. We celebrate our tech sector and its ability to respond to all kinds of issues. But we have also seen failure during this period. So for example, track and trace there's simply been no response to that. I don't know whether it's because people were not anticipating that such a pandemic will happen. And most health tech responses historically are focused more on telehealth and all those sort of issues. But now we know we need a broad range of health tech interventions. I think for Africa, for the rest of the world, 4 key areas. One is ed tech, because there's clearly now a need to respond to the education challenges, as you mentioned. Health tech, a need to respond on a whole range of areas. Gov tech, so governments trying to talk to citizens during this period, trying to find those ways at time when you say people should be locked at home. How does government communicate with them to provide the right sort of information to them is clearly an issue. And then envirotech, because of the whole climate change issue, the response that we were going to put to that, I don't think that challenge is gone away. Do you think that the platforms exist, the hubs, the ecosystem exists within Ghana and the rest of Africa to respond on those levels to those 4 key challenges that are facing us?
So in terms of whether I think the provision and the infrastructure exists, yes, it does. Is it well funded? No. So we have a situation in which we have quite a number of hubs, growing every single year, who are offering some brilliant support to entrepreneurs on the ground and providing a community for them in an environment in which entrepreneurship is still seen as something that isn't as valuable to our parents' generation, let's say. A lot of entrepreneurs are, breaking the kind of cycle and deciding to start businesses themselves. And these hubs are encouraging, they provide spaces. And what we're finding is that whereas in the UK, for example, the small business sector accounts for maybe 90% plus of the economy, it is the bedrock of the economy. Here we see, a very large informal sector, a smaller small business sector who struggle to get access to loans, who struggle to get the finance to really scale them unless it's coming from outside. And then you've got quite a sizable, large corporate space. So you've got young people who are more tempted to go, down the kind of corporate space because it's guaranteed income. That's kind of where, that's kind of a credible job to go into, unless you are interested in the small business space. So the growth in hubs has been exceptional in terms of trying to change some of that narrative. However, government completely under-resource these hubs. A lot of their funding comes from external organizations, whether that is external aid organizations or private sector institutions who plug funding into them. And so we have a situation in which I think if you are idea stage as an entrepreneur, there is quite a bit of support out there. You could probably find some kind of support in some of the major cities. But if you are a kind of early stage entrepreneur, early traction entrepreneur, you might be at kind of seed stage and looking for some funding, some genuine funding, not grant funding, real equity-based or loan-based funding to take the business to the next level. There is a dearth in support, and we need to actually find ways to build capacity within the tech ecosystem, within the hubs, to allow them to support entrepreneurs who are the bedrock of the economy a lot more than they can now.
So is Van der Vijn planning to expand to Ghana? Are you working, because I know one of the important things that Van der Vijn does is that it connects to large businesses, partners, EY, I've seen on your website, Google, Facebook, and others. Are you planning to use that base that you've built here to also support Ghana and support the rest of Africa?
Yeah, so a big part of our strategy was to look into international expansion opportunities. We realized that the work that we're doing in the UK, while it's good, whilst I think it's worthy, there is still a lot of support out there for you as a founder at the moment. And we wanted to be able to provide support in a part of the world where it's needed most. All of us come from, well, most of us come from, sub-Saharan African backgrounds. We represent 4 or 5 countries between us. And as a diaspora, we recognize the importance of giving back. And, for me, the decision to move here last year was a real commitment towards me wanting to listen, to learn, and to find out what we could be doing on the ground. COVID-19 has really changed the landscape for a lot of organizations. A lot of funders have retreated until it's a bit more steady. Organizations that may have worked in schools before are finding that until the situation's a lot more certain, they can't do that work. So short answer to that is that before COVID-19, we had commitment to run a program in Lagos. We were in conversations with organizations in Accra, in Cape Town, and in parts of Mozambique to run programs or to collaborate on existing programs. And we found that we've really had to kind of retreat from that until the international context is a bit clearer. And we've doubled down on our work in the UK, where we have established relationships and ongoing programs instead for now.
I think that when things calm down, I think one of the things we were talking about earlier in terms of collaboration and working together, there will be opportunities for a broad range of organizations to come together to think about intervention in Africa, because I think Africa is a great place is a great opportunities in Africa right now. I was in Lagos as well just before the lockdown, and I can see how people are burning to do more. And in the tech sector, we've seen quite a broad range of organizations now securing funding, launching apps, launching tech projects, and so on and so forth. So I think there's great opportunities there. Just to pivot to a question from one of your fans. The question is more personal to you. How did you get into the tech business?
Yeah, so I started my career in management consulting, and at the time I was working with mostly kind of financial services and government institutions to help them build, corporate talent development programs. And it was there that I ended up coaching a lot of young people who were interested in moving into technology, building digitally enabled businesses, or going into professional services. And at the time, I was also going to a lot of startup events in which people just didn't look like me. And I thought, what's going on here? So the desire to get into tech didn't necessarily come out of some, anything kind of, any kind of deep passion for technology. It came from the desire to see an economy in which it shouldn't matter where you're from or what your gender is or whatever, for you to be able to get into tech and have a real opportunity to build something that has the power to transform our economy. Like I said, tech is growing at an extraordinary rate, and there are so many opportunities for us to build things that can really make a difference. So that's my angle, more social impact, less obsession with technology.
There's a question here about how can the diaspora communities help to improve the knowledge and skills base of small scale businesses in Africa?
Yeah, so I'm going to sound like a broken record here, guys, so forgive me, but there are also opportunities for professionals in the diaspora to connect and engage with entrepreneurs on the ground through brilliant organizations that are operating in this space and through the brilliant hubs that are operating in this space. Organizations of all kinds, whether they are corporates. I know Shell Foundation recently launched a mentoring program connecting professionals in the diaspora to entrepreneurs on the ground. A brilliant entrepreneur called Benny Nguama has recently launched a platform called Weka, which allows anyone to invest in African businesses, and he's piloting in Ghana and Kenya at the moment. So wekainvest.com is a great place if you're looking for opportunities to invest and provide additional support as well. There are also a lot of hubs on the ground that could really benefit from support in terms of consultancy. Impact Hub is a kind of a frequent name that comes up, and MEST Africa is another place that comes up, where if you were interested in coming over here and spending some time, you have the opportunity to apply to be a fellow. There are lots of opportunities and lots of people that you're able to kind of connect to support directly. And I'm more than happy to kind of facilitate introductions as well if anyone was interested in reaching out to me, and I'm sure Nero will share my details as well. But I think what bothers me, it bothered me before I moved out here, was the number of people I met who said, oh, I'd love to move back to Ghana, I'd love to move back to Nigeria, but maybe in 10 years time when, I'm a bit more sorted, when I'm there's always a And now is the time more than ever for Africans to build Africa. Now is the time more than ever for the diaspora to see where it can give back, either virtually or on the ground. And I'd always say on the ground, even if it's for a small time, the impact you can have. And, we're still in an economy where people like to see your face, people like to shake your hand. The impact you can have here is huge. And the question I always ask myself is, whose future are you building when you're in the UK? Whose future are you building through your taxes? Whose future are you building through your contributions to the organizations you work in? Now's the time.
Fantastic. This is why it's a real privilege to have you as our first guest, because that passion for Africa is definitely in you. And everything that you said, I think, as you can see from the comments, people are very excited about the contribution that you've brought to us today. And as you say, this is the time. There is no other time. In actual fact, a lot of us are spending time building other nations, not recognizing that we can build our own continent. And I'm not concentrating just on the individual countries, but the continent as a whole. And I think one of the posts that we've shared on Sparks Africa was just taking a look at the population of people of African descent across the world, whether it's America, South America, the Caribbean, the African continent, and Europe. If you were to be able to harness the potential of that collective and build that movement that brings us together, we will not just change Africa, we will change the world. So I think it's very important that people just recognize the collective power of people of African descent across the world. We're coming close to the end of the conversation, and I think you've done an excellent job. This is why it's very easy to say that you are a spark of Africa, because the knowledge that you've brought today, the way you've answered the questions and the contribution that you put forward, I think is excellent and will help a lot of people. As much as we will ask you to come on the platform on Facebook and share the information that you've talked about, share any information that you think will help people. I think people are also here to help and to support your organization. So just in the last few minutes, I think it will be good to give you the opportunity to talk to people about how they can get in touch with Foundervine. Your information is here, but if you can just talk to people about how they can get in touch and support your organization.
Absolutely. So we have a really thriving community of entrepreneurs and professionals at Foundvine. And very basically, the way it works is that any entrepreneur at any stage in their journey is able to apply directly to be part of our community, or by attending any one of our events is automatically added to our community. The community is a really interesting place where opportunities are shared, where conversations are had, and I'd highly encourage anyone listening who's an entrepreneur to look into that. If you are professional at any stage in your career, but typically kind of 3 to 5 years plus, anywhere up to 30 years plus, look into our fellowship. And on our website, you'll find a page called the Vine Fellowship 2020. We induct professionals who commit to giving 12 months of their time to supporting entrepreneurs from diverse communities in various ways. It's as little or as much time as you're able to give. And the point is that we're building a community of highly skilled professionals who all make the commitment to building the pipeline of diversity into business and into technology. And if you feel like that sounds like you and you're looking for a way to give your time and expertise, then please look into the fellowship, because there are always opportunities to contribute to our work. If you are an organization, whether that's an educational institution, a business, or an arm of local government, and you are interested in partnering with us to run a program, either internally for your people or externally for entrepreneurs and for professionals, please do feel free to get in touch with us, and we're always happy to have a conversation.
Great, fantastic. So there's 2 last questions. One is about your experience of the digital infrastructure in Africa. Is it strong enough to support the emergence of developing small businesses?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that I can be having this conversation is a sign that the infrastructure is improving, at least with regard to internet connectivity. And I managed to run a business remotely from Ghana, a team of 12, absolutely fine. And, you know, that's testament to you know, the improvements we've seen in internet connectivity and digital infrastructure. However, I'm not going to paint a rosy picture like come here and everything is going to be great. No, there are still major challenges when it comes to access to digital services, when it comes to you know, banking, when it comes to setting up a business. It's still very manual. There are many processes that are still very manual, and I think that is, you can say that that's the negative, but for me it's an opportunity. If you see all of these disparate processes that hinder people from living their lives or hinder businesses from growing, there is an opportunity for you to build an infrastructure that can support it. I have friends who have moved out here to start, you know, data centers or start kind of cloud computing services, and recognizing that this is a kind of really interesting market that is a lot less crowded than in the West. So if you feel like there's something of value that you can add to help build that infrastructure, now is the time to start having those conversations and actually be on the ground and see what you can do.
Great, fantastic. The last question, there are two questions. One, a disabled person in the diaspora, just wondering if there's a chance of gaining any level of traction in business.
So I would need to understand the question a bit more. Is that an entrepreneur with disabilities who's trying to navigate?
As a disabled diasporan, what is the chance of someone like me gaining any level of traction? I suppose perhaps in Africa.
So I would need to understand that a bit more. Is that to run a business? Is that in accessibility to spaces? Or?
Yeah, it would be difficult to answer that. I suppose what I would say is please inbox me and we can have a conversation about the issue that you're raising. Another question, I would love to provide support. I tick the boxes to be a fellow. So
Amazing.
I suppose for that person,
sign up, founderwine.com/fellowship.
Izzy, thank you so much for joining us today. Perhaps as we develop this program and these conversations, we'll invite you back at some stage for further discussion on these issues. Say hi to our president and the great people of Ghana. I think on Sparks Africa is very clear that we want to celebrate every single African country, every single community, and celebrate the great things about Africa, to have those conversations that empower people of Africa and to build better communities, better networks, and to work together for the development of Africa. For all our guests, we've been very pleased to have you join. For all our participants, it's been great that you've been able to join us today. The Sparks Africa platform is on Facebook, so please join and add your friends. We're also on Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn, so you can join us anytime. If we can just give Izzy the opportunity for some last words, and then we can end the broadcast for today.
Brilliant, thank you, Nero. So the only thing that I want to leave you with is just a sense of the scale of the opportunity we have to really make a difference in these times. All of us have been, I'm sure, exhausted by recent global events. And like I said, really asking ourselves, is this the moment that the world changes? Is it really going to make a difference? Technology and social media has given us the opportunity to make that difference ourselves in a way we've never had in history. It is within our gift as a community to come together and make that difference. So if you have an idea, even if you don't want to enact it yourself, it is within your gift to share that, to keep the conversation going, to lean on your organizations, on your governments, on your institutions, to make the change that we need to see. And I'm really excited. I'm nervous about whether there's going to be a change, but I meet so many fantastic men and women within our community every day that inspire me and make me know that something's going to come out of recent events. So thank you, Nero, so much for having me and for the opportunity you gave me last year to visit Downing Street, because that fundamentally changed our organization. And it's one of the ways that you, as someone who was in a position of authority, used your influence to make a difference to us and for our community. So more of us need to do that. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It's been a privilege. You're an amazing lady and a true spark of Africa. Have a lovely evening, and thank you to all our users for joining. Thank you.
Thank you.